The Healer's Fall. The massive hospital ship Benevolence drifted silently in orbit around Nexari Prime, its gleaming white hull adorned with the universal medical emblem that had become synonymous with humanity throughout the galaxy. Dr. Eliza Chen stood at the observation deck, watching as shuttles ferried patients to and from the surface of the blue-green world below. "Another successful spinal reconstruction?" asked Captain David Morgan as he joined her at the viewport. Eliza nodded, her eyes still fixed on the planet. The Nexari ambassador's daughter. Their physicians said it couldn't be done. A small smile touched her lips. But human hands have always been good at fixing what others consider broken. For the past 30 years, humanity had carved out a unique position in the interstellar community. While other species had joined the galactic concord through military might, technological innovation, or resource wealth, humans had offered something else entirely: their exceptional medical expertise. Earth's turbulent history had forged a species with remarkably adaptable immune systems and an unparalleled understanding of trauma care. Centuries of warfare and disease had inadvertently created the galaxy's best healers. When humans finally reached the stars, they found themselves welcome not for their weapons, but for their medicine. "Incoming transmission from the Mercy," announced the ship's eye. "Priority Alpha." Morgan frowned. The Mercy was stationed near the Volcrack territory, a region known for isolationism and suspicion of outsiders. The Volcracks, with their crystalline exoskeletons and hive-mind neural networks, had reluctantly joined the Concord only after extensive diplomatic efforts. "Put it through," he ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, but instead of the expected face of Captain Rivera, it showed only static interspersed with fragmented images of chaos. Medical personnel running, warning lights flashing. "Under attack." "Repeat, we are under attack." "Volcrack warships have." Captain Rivera's voice cut through before dissolving back into static. "No provocation. Our patience." The transmission ended abruptly. Eliza's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. We're medical vessels. We're protected under Article 7 of the Concord Charter." Morgan was already moving. "Communications, contact Earth Command, and the other medical ships. Engineering, prepare for emergency jump." But before the Benevolence could react, the sensors blared warnings. 3 Volcrack battle cruisers had appeared from hyperspace, their distinctive crystalline hulls refracting starlight as they approached. "They're charging weapons," called out the tactical officer, disbelief evident in his voice. The Benevolence, like all human medical vessels, carried no weapon systems, a deliberate choice to emphasize their peaceful mission. "Evasive maneuvers," Morgan ordered. "Get our patients to the escape pods." Eliza rushed to the medical bay, her mind racing. They had over 300 patients aboard, many immobile or in critical condition. The ship shuddered as the first volley of Volcrack energy beams struck their shields. "Move everyone who can walk to Evacuation Zone C," she commanded her medical team. "Priority transfer for intensive care patients." The ship's AI voice remained eerily calm over the chaos. "Shield integrity at 60%. Hull breach on decks 7 through 9. Emergency force fields activated." As Eliza helped a young Araxian child with a recently regenerated limb into an escape pod, the ship rocked violently again. The lights flickered, and the artificial gravity wavered momentarily. "Shield integrity at 20%, the AI announced. "Multiple hull breaches detected." Captain Morgan's voice came over the emergency channel. "All personnel, abandon ship." "Repeat, all personnel, abandon ship." Eliza secured the last of her patients in the escape pod and sealed the door, watching as it launched toward Nexari Prime. She turned to make her way to another evacuation zone when the ship suffered its killing blow. The explosion threw her against a bulkhead. As consciousness faded, her last thoughts were not of fear, but of bewilderment. Why would anyone attack healers? Admiral William Hayes stood motionless before the massive display in Earth Defense Command, watching in silent fury as the recordings played. One by one, The feeds from 7 human medical ships showed the same sequence: unexpected Volcrack attacks, desperate evacuation attempts, and finally, destruction. The death toll? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. General Sara Takahashi, his second-in-command, responded with equal restraint. 4,627 human medical personnel confirmed dead, approximately 2,000 patients of various species lost. The Benevolence managed to launch most of its escape pods before being destroyed, but the mercy, compassion, and hope were hit too quickly. And the Concorde's response? Takahashi's expression hardened. Concern. Condemnation. But no action. The Volcracks claim our medical practices constitute biological interference in the natural evolution of species. Several Concorde members who rely on Volcrack resources are advocating for diplomatic solutions. Hayes turned from the display, his weathered face set like stone. 30 years, he said quietly. For 30 years, we've sent our brightest minds, our best doctors, our most advanced medical technology to help every species that asked. We deliberately downplay our military capabilities to reassure the galaxy of our peaceful intentions. Sir, Takahashi began, the President is convening an emergency session of the Global Defense Council in 1 hour. Hayes nodded. It's time to remind the galaxy that before we were healers, we were warriors. President Eleanor Santiago surveyed the faces around the council table. Military leaders, intelligence directors, and the heads of Earth's various scientific divisions. The atmosphere was tense, charged with a cold anger that had spread across Earth as news of the attacks reached the public. The Volcrack ambassador has been recalled to their territory, reported Diplomatic Director Jensen. Before departing, they transmitted a formal declaration stating that human medical intervention across the galaxy constitutes an act of biological imperialism that threatens the natural order of evolution. Dr. Maya Patel, director of Galactic Medicine, couldn't contain her outrage. That's absurd. We've never forced our medicine on anyone. Every procedure, every treatment has been requested and consented to. The Volcracks don't value individual choice, Intelligence Director Nguyen explained. Their hive mind perceives species-wide decisions and evolutionary trajectories. To them, our healing of individuals across multiple species represents an unnatural manipulation of galactic biology. President Santiago raised a hand for silence. The philosophical debate is interesting but academic. They've attacked our ships. They've killed our people. The question now is our response. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. Madam President, I recommend immediate implementation of Protocol Lazarus. A murmur ran through the room. Protocol Lazarus, named after the biblical figure raised from the dead, was the emergency conversion of Earth's peacetime infrastructure to full military capacity. It had been created as a contingency after first contact, but never activated. That would violate at least 6 different Concorde treaties, Jensen pointed out. Treaties the Volcracks have already broken, countered Takahashi. Santiago studied the holographic display, showing the locations of the attacked ships and the Volcrack territory. What's your assessment of their military capability, Admiral? The Volcracks possess significant technological advantages, particularly in energy-based weapons and crystalline hull structures that can absorb and redirect conventional attacks, Hayes explained. However, they've been complacent. They haven't fought a major conflict in over 3 centuries. The President's eyes remained on the display. And our capabilities. On paper, limited. We maintain a defensive fleet as required by Concorde membership. But Hayes paused, then continued with quiet intensity. Project Archangel has been maintained at readiness, as you authorized when you took office. Project Archangel, the classified development and preservation of advanced military technology and tactics, hidden beneath the peaceful face humanity showed to the stars. A contingency that many had hoped would never be needed. Santiago looked around the table once more. The Volcracks attacked ships bearing the universal symbol of medicine, a symbol that predates our entry into space. They killed doctors who had sworn to heal any being in need, regardless of species or origin. They've made their position clear. She straightened her shoulders. Activate Protocol Lazarus. Bring Project Archangel to operational status. As the council dispersed to implement her orders, Santiago remained at the table, staring at the images of the destroyed medical ships. They thought we chose to be healers because we couldn't be warriors, she said quietly to Hayes, who had stayed behind. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Across Earth and its colonies, the transformation was breathtaking in its speed and scope. Shipyards that had been producing exploration vessels and civilian transports switched to military production. Research facilities redirected their focus from medical breakthroughs to weapons development. Veterans who had transitioned to teaching roles found themselves recalled to active duty. In a secure facility beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Vivian Rice led a team working tirelessly on Project Valkyrie, specialized combat suits designed to counter the Volcrack's crystalline biology. Their exoskeletons channel energy in predictable lattice patterns, she explained to the special operations team assembled for training. These suits can disrupt those patterns, essentially turning their greatest strength into a vulnerability. Commander Jackson Chen, former medical evacuation specialist turned strike team leader, studied the schematics. And you're certain these won't harm other species? We may be dealing with hostage situations. The disruptors are precisely calibrated to affect only the specific crystalline structures of Volcrack biology, Rice assured him. To any other life form, the energy signature is harmless. Similar scenes played out in facilities around the solar system. On Europa, antimatter weapons designed to shatter crystalline structures were loaded onto stealth corvettes. On Lumna, pilots trained in simulators that replicated Volcrack ship movements and tactics. In orbit around Saturn, the massive battleship Retribution, mothballed for 15 years and maintained only as a museum piece, was brought back online with upgraded systems. Command of Earth's awakening military fell to Admiral Hayes, whose reputation as a strategist had been largely forgotten during the decades of peace. Now, in the war room beneath Geneva, he assembled the fleet commanders for their final briefing. The Volcracks believe they've struck a species of healers unaccustomed to war, he told them, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. They expect us to respond like the rest of the Concord, with diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. They'd forgotten, or perhaps never knew, that humanity's path to the stars was paved with the blood of countless wars. He activated the holographic display, showing a complex tactical map. Operation Nemesis will proceed in 3 phases. First, the stealth corvettes will eliminate their early warning systems. Second, our main battle groups will engage their home fleet, while specialized strike teams rescue any survivors from the medical ships. Finally, the Retribution will arrive to deliver our ultimatum. Admiral Kwan, commander of the First Strike Fleet, studied the plan. Their crystalline technology gives them advantages in energy absorption and distribution. How do we counter that? Hayes nodded to Dr. Reyes, who stepped forward. Their crystalline structures have resonance frequencies, essentially tones that cause them to vibrate until they shatter. Every weapon in our arsenal has been modified to exploit this vulnerability. As the briefing concluded, Hayes remained behind, studying the tactical display. General Takahashi approached quietly. Having second thoughts, William? Hayes shook his head. No, but I'm reminded of something my grandfather told me when I was young. He was a combat medic in the water wars. He said, humans make the best healers because we've spent millennia learning exactly how bodies break. He looked up at the display showing the assembled fleet, ships that had been reconfigured from exploration and medical vessels into instruments of war in mere weeks. The Volcracks attacked our healers, he said quietly. Now they'll meet our warriors. The warriors rise. The stealth corvette Silent Fury glided through the darkness of space, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it virtually invisible to Volcrack sensors. Commander Elena Vasquez watched the crystalline outpost through the tactical display, her expression unreadable. All systems nominal, reported her second-in-command, Lieutenant Wei. Resonance disruptors charged and ready. Vasquez nodded. Begin the countdown. Coordinate with Shadow and Wraith. Throughout her 15-year career, Vasquez had served as a search and rescue pilot, extracting injured individuals from dangerous situations across the galaxy. Now those same skills, precision flying, quick decision-making, and steady nerves, were being applied to a very different mission. 30 seconds to optimal range, Wei announced. Across a 50-light-year front, 23 similar corvettes were approaching their targets, Volcrack early warning stations positioned along their territorial boundary. The coordination of the attack was precise, timed to the millisecond. 10 seconds. Vasquez thought briefly of her sister, Dr. Isabella Vasquez, who had been stationed on the medical ship Hope. There had been no survivors. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Weapons free. The resonance disruptors fired, not traditional energy weapons, but precisely calibrated acoustic projectors that transmitted specific frequencies through space. To most species, the weapons would have been harmless. To the crystalline structure of Volcrack technology, they were devastating. The outpost didn't explode in a conventional sense. Instead, it seemed to shiver, vibrating at increasing intensity until the crystalline structure simply disintegrated into glittering dust. Target neutralized, Wei confirmed. No distress signal detected. Vasquez allowed herself a small, grim smile. Phase 1 complete. Proceed to secondary target. Across Volcrack space, identical scenes played out as humanity's first strike systematically eliminated their early warning network. The age of humans as merely healers had ended. The warriors had awakened. In the command center of the battleship Vindicator, Admiral Quan watched as the tactical display updated, showing the successful elimination of the Volcrack detection grid. Phase 1 complete, Admiral reported his tactical officer. All strike teams report mission success with 0 casualties. Quan nodded, his face impassive. Signal the fleet. Commence Phase 2. The main battle groups of Earth's newly reactivated fleet emerged from hyperspace at strategic points throughout Volcrack territory. Unlike the stealth corvettes, these ships made no attempt to hide. Their arrival was announced with powerful electromagnetic pulses that scrambled Volcrack communications across 3 systems. The Volcrack response was predictably confused. Having never expected a direct attack, their defensive formations were scattered and uncoordinated. Their battle cruisers, while technologically advanced, were crewed by beings who had no living memory of actual combat. Aboard the Volcrack command ship Crystal Dominance, High Commander Vextal struggled to comprehend the situation. The holographic displays showed human warships appearing throughout their territory, ships that, according to all intelligence, shouldn't exist. Impossible, the commander hissed, crystalline appendages clicking in agitation. Their military capacity was assessed as minimal. They are healers, not warriors. The human vessels are deploying smaller craft, reported a subordinate. They appear to be boarding parties. Vextal's compound eyes narrowed. Target their capital ships. Ignore the smaller vessels. They pose no significant threat. It was a fatal miscalculation. Commander Jackson Chen led his strike team through the crystalline corridors of the Volcrack prison facility. His Valkyrie combat suit enhanced his strength and speed while providing specialized weapons designed specifically to counter Volcrack biology. Life signs ahead, reported Sergeant Rodriguez, consulting her helmet display, consistent with multiple species, including human. Chen nodded. Remember your training. Precision strikes only. We're here to rescue, not massacre. The team moved with disciplined efficiency that belied their primary training as medical personnel. Before the attacks, Chen had been a trauma specialist on Mars. Rodriguez had been developing neural regeneration techniques. Now they applied their intimate knowledge of biology to a darker purpose. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a group of Volcrack guards. The crystalline beings reacted with surprise, clearly not expecting an internal breach of their facility. Non-lethal if possible, Chen ordered as his team engage. The specialized disruptors on their weapons emitted precisely calibrated frequencies that affected only the crystalline structures of the Volcrack exoskeletons. Where a conventional weapon might have shattered them completely, these caused temporary paralysis as the crystalline networks disrupted. "Clear," Rodriguez announced after the brief skirmish. "No permanent damage to any of them." Chen nodded in approval. Even in war, they remained healers at heart. They reached the detention level and found what they had come for: survivors from the attacked medical ships, held in crystalline cells that distorted light in disorienting patterns. Dr. Eliza Chen looked up in disbelief as her cell barrier dissolved. Her once immaculate medical uniform was torn and stained, but her eyes showed unbroken determination. "Earth sent soldiers?" she asked, clearly struggling to reconcile this development with the pacifistic image humanity had projected for decades. Commander Chen extended a hand to help her up. Earth remembered it had them. Across Volcrack space, similar rescue operations were underway. Specialized teams extracted survivors, while the main fleet engaged Volcrack warships in head-on battles. The human tactics were shocking to the Volcracks: aggressive, unpredictable, and executed with a precision that spoke of long preparation. On the bridge of the Vindicator, Admiral Quan received the reports with grim satisfaction. Rescue operations at 87% completion, his communications officer announced. Strike teams report 412 survivors recovered. And the Volcrack response: scattered and ineffective, sir. They're attempting to regroup at their homeworld. Quan nodded. As expected. Signal the Retribution. It's time for Phase 3. The massive battleship Retribution emerged from hyperspace near the Volcrack homeworld, dwarfing even the largest vessels in their defensive fleet. Once a museum piece, the ship had been Earth's first interstellar battleship before being repurposed during the peace era. Now it had been restored to its original purpose, with significant technological upgrades. On its bridge, Admiral Hayes stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the Volcrack ships frantically maneuvered to form a defensive screen around their homeworld. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies, all languages." The communications officer complied, and Hayes stepped forward to address not just the Volcrack fleet, but their entire civilization. "This is Admiral William Hayes of Earth Defense Command. Your unprovoked attacks on our medical vessels have been answered. Your early warning systems have been neutralized. Your fleet is in disarray. Our rescued personnel are safely beyond your reach." He paused, letting the reality of their situation sink in. "For 30 years, humanity has shown you our healing hands. Today, we've reminded you of our iron fist. The choice of what you experience going forward is yours." On the tactical display, he could see the Volcrack ships hesitating, caught between fight and flight. "Retribution is targeted," reported the tactical officer. "The Volcrack flagship is charging weapons." Hayes nodded calmly. "Deploy the Armistice Protocol." From the underside of the massive battleship, a specialized transmission array extended. It began broadcasting a precisely modulated frequency, not the destructive resonance used in weapons, but a more subtle pattern that interfered with the Volcrack neural network's ability to maintain aggressive thought patterns. Across the Volcrack fleet, weapons powered down as their crews found themselves unable to maintain the collective will necessary for combat. It wasn't mind control. The Volcracks retained their consciousness and free will, but rather a targeted dampening of their capacity for organized violence. "Signal coming through from the Volcrack flagship," announced the communications officer. "They're requesting terms." Hayes allowed himself a small smile that held no joy. "Inform them that our terms are simple: full reparations for all lives lost, return of any remaining medical personnel or patients, a binding agreement never to interfere with medical ships of any species, and their immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Concord, which they have shown themselves unworthy to join." As the message was transmitted, General Takahashi approached Hayes quietly. "Impressive display of force, William. But I'm curious, why not push for more? We could dictate terms to half the Concorde right now if we wanted. Hayes turned to her, his expression solemn. Because we didn't come back as conquerors, Sarah. We came back as protectors. The galaxy needed to be reminded that humans can fight when necessary, but our preference has always been to heal. He looked out at the stars, where the Volcrack ships were already beginning to stand down. Besides, he added, I think our point has been made quite effectively. 3 months later, Dr. Eliza Chen stood on the observation deck of the new medical ship Renaissance, watching as patients were transported up from the surface of Nexaray Prime. The ship was larger than the Benevolence had been, with more advanced medical facilities, but also with discrete defensive systems integrated into its design. Captain Morgan joined her at the viewport, now wearing a uniform that subtly incorporated both medical insignia and military rank. The new protocols seem to be working well, he commented. The Brecken delegation actually requested our escort through the outer rim. Eliza nodded. Word travels fast. No one's attacked a medical ship of any species since the Volcrack surrender. The news from Earth had been equally positive. The rapid mobilization had demonstrated humanity's industrial and technological capabilities, but true to President Santiago's promise, most of the fleet had been returned to peaceful purposes once the crisis ended. The message had been sent. There was no need to belabor it. Do you ever think about that Volcrack prison? Morgan asked quietly. Eliza closed her eyes briefly, remembering the disorienting crystalline cells and the unexpected rescue. Every day, but not with anger anymore. No. She shook her head, turning to look at the stars. They misunderstood us fundamentally. They saw our healing as weakness, our compassion as vulnerability. They couldn't conceive that the same hands that repair broken bodies could also wield weapons with deadly efficiency. In the distance, a small escort vessel maintained a respectful perimeter around the medical ship, a reminder of humanity's dual nature that the galaxy would not soon forget. The Arcturian ambassador said something interesting at the last Concorde meeting, Morgan remarked. He said that humanity had finally revealed its true face to the galaxy. Eliza smiled. And what did you tell him? That we've never hidden our true face. We've always been both healers and warriors. We just preferred to lead with our better nature. As the Renaissance prepared to receive its next group of patients, Eliza reflected on the truth of that statement. Throughout human history, the capacity for destruction and the drive to heal had existed side by side. The attack on their medical ships had forced them to demonstrate both aspects to the galaxy, but it hadn't changed who they fundamentally were. The Volcracks had attacked Earth's healers, only to face its warriors. But in the end, it was humanity's healers who had returned to the stars, now respected not just for their compassion, but for the strength that lay behind it. In the vastness of space, the Renaissance continued its mission, its white hull gleaming in the light of distant stars, a beacon of healing protected by the implicit promise of humanity's other face.